Okay, so colleagues, Helen is here. Dear colleagues, I think we may already, since time is already, let's say, came for our webinar, it's time to maybe to start, Helen, and you are the, let's say, main, let's say, holder of this webinar, and we're quite happy to see all of our participants here. And Colin, the floor is yours, and you will start from presenting this webinar first. Then I will provide some technical information about webinar and today's presentation. Okay, please, Colin.
Thank you very much, dear Kanat. Good morning or good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear partners. It is my pleasure to welcome you today in this webinar held under the Sustainable Infrastructure Program in Asia, or SIPA. Let me first thank my colleagues from the University of Central Asia for organizing this webinar, which will focus on the topic of energy decarbonization in Central Asia. I think this webinar comes at a very is very timely as countries are working to develop and submit their NDC 3.0 to fulfill their climate goals. And as you know, a number of Central Asia is host to some of the most energy-intensive economies in the world, and the decarbonization of the energy sector and of which means the power sector, but also other energy-related emissions in transport and in industry. This decarbonization will be absolutely critical for meeting climate goals of Central Asian governments. In this context, we will be very pleased and very lucky to hear about a very interesting piece of research from my colleague Ablai from the University of Central Asia, which will show extremely interesting trends on policies and investments in energy systems across countries of Central Asia. And then we will move on to OECD presentations that build on a review of investment policies in Uzbekistan with a specific focus on green investments and spanning renewable energy, other green investments, and low carbon technologies such as hydrogen. So I think this will be an extremely interesting opportunity to hear about progress that has been made in the region, because a lot of progress has been made and continues to be made, as will be illustrated in the case of Uzbekistan, but also, of course, to hear about the challenges and policy recommendations to surmount these challenges. Before I conclude, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the government of Germany and through its International Climate Initiative for supporting the work that we have been carrying under the Sustainable Infrastructure Program in Asia, which is implemented with a large consortium of partners and led by the OECD. So on that note, I wish to everyone very good discussions. I hope that these will be very interactive. And let me give the floor to my esteemed colleague, Kanat Tilekayev. Kanat, floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, I will switch shortly on Russian. Для тех, кто для тех участников, которые хотят на русском языке, вы, пожалуйста, выберите язык. У вас может быть язык выбран либо английский, либо русский, и там вы можете себя видеть. Okay, I will switch again to English. Back. For your convenience, we will put to the chat our presentations. We will put it on both languages, but specifically we will first put Russian translation of the presentation. So those of you who, let's say, want to have presentation in Russian, we provide this all presentation in Russian. We have today 3 presentations. Today will be first, as Pelin mentioned, will be a presentation of Vladimir Smogasmbetov, and after that we have presentation of Faisal Tosami about accelerating investment in green energy in Uzbekistan, and also another additional presentation will be done by the OECD, by Pelin Tamer, head of the unit. And after that, we'll have Q&A session where we can discuss results of the studies, how it's interesting, what do you find more, let's say, interesting specifically for the regional perspective. And after that, we'll make closing remarks, and our webinar approximately in 85 minutes approximately we'll have. That should be enough for all presentations and discussion today. Floor now goes to Vladimir Smogasmbetov for his extremely interesting data we explored, and we're quite happy that we have a chance to have all audience today. We have more than 40 participants already, and it's a good start to disseminate results we produced during SIPA program. Thank you. Please go.
Yeah. Thank you, Kanat. So just let me share my screen so everyone can see my screen, right? So, okay. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Kanat, for introducing, and thank you, Pelin, also for giving a great chance to present our study. This is actually a final version of our study and the report we concluded just recently. So this study will be about decarbonization of energy in Central Asia. In particular, this study relates to decarbonization of energy infrastructure across 6 Central Asian countries, according to OECD classification. And in today's video, I'm going to just share what will be presented in half an hour. So I briefly mentioned about the study and the workflow of the study conducted from the last year. Also, I provide the key policies for energy decarbonization in Central Asia. I'll outline also challenges and opportunities for the region. Also, I'll just talk on both carbon intensive and the low carbon energy infrastructure investment trends, which is a core study of this background, let's say, research paper. And as a conclusion, I'll just briefly mention the trends happening from 2008 till 2023. So this is a brief outline. So let me proceed further. So if we speak about the study, actually the study purpose is to assess the political environment in Central Asia. Again, in Central Asia, we mention not only like 5 countries, but also we are considering Mongolia. So 6 countries to determine how effectively like governments and their current policies support the transition to more sustainable development, sustainable energy development with lowering emissions from energy sector. And as a result, the study will be concluded with analytical review, or let's say background paper study, which will provide the current situation in the region and provide the overview of the policies adopted and adapted by national states, and also will provide some overview of what is going on with like a vision of international organizations, especially multilateral development banks, to actually be aligned with Paris Agreement and 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in Central Asia. Before going to the details, just briefly, I'd like to stop and provide the study workflow. So as you can see, we conducted 5 phases, which is like generalized. First phase was a collection and preparation of a data set of investment in energy infrastructure projects for 6 Central Asian countries over 13 years. So this study, time frame of the study is starting from 2008 till 2023 inclusive, 16 years over 6 countries. So basically, first phase included first sub-phase of phase 1, we included general like data compiling of carbon neutral, or let's say low carbon energy, let's say projects, investment projects. And the second phase was continued by collection and preparation of a data set, another data set on carbon intensive, or let's say traditional source of energy investment projects. By investment projects, we mean with our colleagues of our study, we mean mostly different types of projects, including grants, technical assistance, some other types of projects. So it is not only investment, but diverse kind of projects. So basically, we gathered more than 300 projects for both carbon intensive and low carbon, out of which 200 were carbon neutral or low carbon, and 100 plus projects were designed to traditional energy infrastructure projects. Second phase, number 2, included desk analysis of national policies. Later on the next slide, I'll show you what kind of national policies we determined, and the reports of international agencies, as I mentioned before, like multilateral development banks reports mostly, and some other international organization reports related to decarbonization of energy infrastructure in the region. Third phase, actually, what was quite interesting, that we identified the key challenges and opportunities for energy decarbonization in Central Asia region. Phase 4, we touched upon data analysis to get understanding of investment trends and patterns for both carbon intensive and low carbon energy infrastructure. This is, I think, the more engaging and interesting part of the study. And finally, phase 5 included the discussion and conclusion based on the identified patterns of investment trends in the Central Asia region. So just to briefly outline the key policy documents for energy decarbonization in Central Asia. In this study, we considered most, let's say, reliable and relevant policies for our 6 countries. So you can see on the slide the main policies for Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Mongolia. I'll not stop on each one, but as you can see, we covered the most important ones, and the same we applied also for Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. So mostly we targeted 3 key policies for each kind of report and for each country. So if we proceed further, just to mention, so basically key. So here is we outline. Okay, so okay, so based on the analysis of our national policies and of 6 countries, we identified common challenges, which we think are common for the region, and we also outlined the opportunities, which is more kind of unique. To some extent, they might be common, but they are also unique for each country, given the landscape, some other like conditions we should also consider, given the current states of our countries. So challenges which we found as of reports of UNDP, International Energy Agency, that mostly the main challenges are outdated infrastructure and the limited investment in energy modernization. Second one is like we actually see the high infrastructure costs, limited financing, outdated grids, and the harsh winters. This is especially mostly applicable to Kazakhstan and Mongolia. Also, the third one is the lack of policy frameworks, specifically geared toward decarbonization, because of mostly complex regulatory frameworks and uncertainty, and some limited potential for investment in the renewable energy projects. But nevertheless, we face such kind of challenges, but we also have opportunities. Again, for example, if we see different reports of international organizations and the multilateral development banks, for example, World Bank suggests that international investments in green technology are on the rise, and we can facilitate, using this kind of investment patterns, we can facilitate the transition to low carbon economy. This is mostly applicable to Uzbekistan. At a later trends, I'll show how this evolves over time. For example, the report by like IRENA of 2021 states that despite the barriers of and the challenges in the region, there is a strong potential in renewable energy, particularly hydropower, solar, and wind. And if we say the hydropower is mostly applied to Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, solar and wind mostly to Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan as well as Turkmenistan. So also the third opportunity, actually, what I'd like to mention here, that there is substantial potential for solar energy. For example, given high summertime and sunshine throughout the year. This is mostly applicable to Turkmenistan case. So this kind of challenges and opportunities were identified by analyzing different national and international reports. And so if we proceed further, just as a starting point, as in content, first I'll stop on the key trends for carbon intensive energy infrastructure projects, investment projects over 16 years. Then I'll proceed to low carbon projects. So if you can see on this slide, we can definitely see that there is a variation over the countries and across the countries concerning the investment in coal infrastructure projects of 16 years. As we can see, mostly data available starting from 2009. During this financial crisis, during the pandemic time, there is mostly no like data available, but we used what we have as of now. And as you can see, there is a high trend of like assessing all the like projects in coal infrastructure by Mongolia from 2009 to 2013. And then we also then see the shift of investments to Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan dominates in later stage of this study. So now if we can see the total investment in coal infrastructure, which is separated by countries and clusters. So here for our data set, we defined by the three key categories for coal projects. First is coal plant upgrades, meaning that modernization of coal plant. And second one is cold chain projects, meaning that extraction, beneficiation, and the transportation of coal from mines to end of users. And the third one is coal-fired power plants, which is basically works on coal, right? And so if you can see the trend here, we can see clearly that for coal plant upgrades, there is a dominance by Kazakhstan. More like, let's say, 2/3 of all investments come to there. If we see the cold chain projects, there is like 3/4 of almost all investments in coal projects are dominated by Mongolia. And in coal-fired power plants, for example, Tajikistan takes a lead. So basically, this is it for by countries and clusters. Okay. So third, just to briefly mention coal infrastructure by donors and countries, as we are targeting mostly investment projects and the financing of different, let's say, initiatives. This is, I think, one of the most important graphs and the slides. So clearly, based on our data compilation and analysis, we can consider that state companies and the state banks are predominantly finance coal infrastructure projects, carbon intensive one. And here, if you go into it, you can see that two countries like Kazakhstan and Mongolia dominates over the rest of four. And clearly, we can consider also that multilateral development banks such as Eurasian Development Bank, Malaysian government banks, and other companies, European EBRD, ADB, actually finance such kind of projects less, and if we compare to state companies. So this may imply that state government still like shifting towards low carbon investment projects is kind of slow. Now, if we go just one slide on gas infrastructure projects over 16 years, again, just by countries, what we can see here is the trend is not so like clear. There is no upward or downward trend, but it's like fluctuates over time. As we can see, there is a huge dominance of Turkmenistan at the early stage, 2008. So basically, this is because of the high investment like projects in gas pipelines. Also, then we can consider there is dominance a bit of Kazakhstan, and then at a later stage, Uzbekistan take a lead. But overall, we can consider that amount of investments decreasing after 2010. Just a brief overview of gas infrastructure projects, investments in gas infrastructure projects by countries and clusters. Again, we, as a coal-related investment projects, we classify it into 4. So first one is gas line projects. Here we can consider definitely the dominance of Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. Gas power plant, meaning that power plants operated on natural gas. So this is a very interesting finding that Uzbekistan has a majority of investments, over 88% of all investments come to it. Coal to gas shift, which is kind of more intermediate investments toward to low carbon, but still we cannot see that it is really low carbon, more kind of intermediate shift. So here is dominance by Kazakhstan, and there is a few investments of in gas to liquefied natural gas production. So if we turn to oil infrastructure projects for 16 years, again by donors and countries, here we also clustered by 3 main categories. First one is oil production, second is oil transportation, and third one is oil exploration. And basically in oil production, obviously, as a lot of reserves and resources in Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan dominates over attracting such kind of investment projects in development of oil rigs and deposits. So almost 3/4 of all projects come to Kazakhstan. And concerning, for example, what is interesting in oil transportation, 2/3 of all investments go to Uzbekistan, and 1/3 of it go to Mongolia, based on our data. And the oil exploration, again, because it is like a lot of resources and like reserves based in Kazakhstan, all the investments go to Kazakhstan, 100%. So just to outline the key challenges of in terms of carbon intensive energy projects. So here is the 3 key things I'd like to say. First, again, as you can see, based on coal, oil and gas related investment projects, we can consider that still continue to play a significant role in Central Asia region. Again, oil production for Kazakhstan, gas transmission, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, and coal-related projects mostly dominated by Mongolia. What we can see also concerning financing of such kind of projects, state-owned companies, banks, and let's say still various Chinese entities, like gives a dominant share of all the investments to traditional source of energy. While MDBs, multilateral development banks, as I mentioned before, increasingly investing less and less in traditional source of energy. Again, just like intermediate interim conclusion here, that the presence of carbon intensive energy infrastructure is still substantial. So notably, investment trends in gas infrastructure have fluctuated over 16 years. There is no clear patterns, which we still can consider as interim from carbon intensive to low carbon energy infrastructure and development, right? So still dominance over the region is led by coal projects. So now let's turn to low carbon, which is another side of, let's say, of the study. Basically, we are comparing 2 sets of, like, let's say, patterns in decarbonization. So basically, if we go and see the whole general picture of low carbon infrastructure projects in the region by countries, This is like here is we found interesting trends, and what we can see here is that over 16 years there is like shifting and dominance led by Uzbekistan. So Uzbekistan attracts high volume of investment projects in a low carbon sector of its economy. And the second best one is Kazakhstan, and to some extent Tajikistan, but the rest of the countries are still lagging behind. But for some countries, still we didn't find enough data to present whole, let's say, trends over the region. So just to mention that we also classified our low carbon energy infrastructure projects by key clusters. The three clusters is first one, energy efficiency projects, meaning that, for example, the projects related to energy efficiency in residential buildings, in commerce-related buildings like offices, shops, malls. Also, we classified another set of category by renewable energy projects, where we included all solar, wind, hydro, let's say power plant projects here, and other energy related projects includes grid optimization, modernization of current grid systems or electricity systems in the region. And if we can consider that there is three key categories and three clusters. First, what we can see is that energy efficiency projects, again, dominated by Uzbekistan, and 46% of all investments in energy efficiency projects go to Uzbekistan. Like one-fourth of all the projects go to Kazakhstan, and there is also some, let's say, presence of investments in energy efficiency projects in Tajikistan. Concerning renewable energy projects, again, this trend similar to energy efficiency projects, or more than half of all the investments go to Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, as I mentioned before, the leader as of 2023 in the region. Also, the second best is Kazakhstan, 22% here, and the 13, let's say, percent goes to Tajikistan. So more or less, energy efficiency and the renewable energy projects have a similar pattern, and the other related energy projects are just again led by Uzbekistan. So this is, I think, slide and the graph is also important to mention, just as a carbon intensive one. So what we can see here, there is a flip, right? So if we previously see that, let's say, carbon intensive energy infrastructure projects mostly financed by national state governments and banks or entities, now the trend is reverse. Here we can consider definitely that multilateral development banks such as World Bank, ADB, EBRD now take lead of financing. And what is even more interesting again, that most of the investments, let's say for World Bank, 72% of all investments go to Uzbekistan, 49% of all ADB's investment go to Uzbekistan again, and but let's say EBRD's investments go equally to Kazakhstan and to Uzbekistan. Concerning the national governments, again, Chinese government, banks, and private companies, now they are tend to invest less in low carbon infrastructure projects. So again, as I mentioned before, there is a reverse pattern now, which is quite interesting finding of this entire study. And we can definitely say that international organizations, especially international financial organizations, are keen to develop the sustainability or decarbonization agenda in the region. And so similar to key findings to carbon intensive energy projects. So here is key snapshots for low carbon energy projects. As of now, among the types of low carbon energy infrastructure projects, energy efficiency projects hold a significant share among the three key categories. However, as I mentioned before on the graph, investments in renewable infrastructure or renewable energy sources of like projects, let's say, or source of energy, have seen the sharp increase in recent years. Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are notable as the primary recipients of these investments, right? So the second key point, that the distribution of investments by donors and countries, highlights that Uzbekistan as a major beneficiary, while Mongolia is a minor recipient. And MDBs, national governments, and Chinese entities have made substantial investments in energy efficiency projects, but still, again, multilateral development banks take a lead in this kind of initiatives. And if we go in the whole general picture of entire time horizon over the past 16 years, energy infrastructure investment trends across 6 countries have shown fluctuating trends. Uzbekistan has emerged as a leader in the energy, and Mongolia has consistently received a negligible amount of funding. Just to finalize my presentation, instead of like providing a text of like general recommendations and conclusions, I just would like to stop and mention here this explains this graph, which is, I think, the numbers tell us more real story behind what is going on in the region. To do so, as a concluding part, we decided just to split our entire time period into 4 key equal time, let's say, horizon. So if you can see that as the study started from 2008 and ended by 2023, we can see that there is a shift from carbon intensive to low carbon energy infrastructure or investments in low carbon infrastructure projects over time. So as clearly number tell us, starting from 10% between the first 4 years of the study, we have a clear increase by 5 times. So it's increased by 53%. So also what we see that clearly there is a decreasing trend of carbon intensive energy in the region. And just a final remark, over the 16 years, still carbon intensive like investment projects were like 51 billion or 67 of the total in the region, while low carbon energy infrastructure attracted 25 billion, so 33%. Still, if we consider in terms of trend, we can also definitely see that there is an upward trend of low carbon energy infrastructure in the region. But in terms of number, if we see in absolute terms, still, of course, over the 16 years, there is a dominance of carbon intensive energy infrastructure in the region. So this might leave us a question whether, like, to what extent and how much we're gonna to consider as a real energy decarbonization in the region, right? So this is a critical question I leave to the audience to discuss, and we'll be very glad to reply and respond to your respective questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdullah. It was excellent presentation. I enjoyed it. It was very well done.
Thank you.
We have question from Manisha, but we will answer it at the end of the Q&A session. What I want to say that we are happy to announce that we will publish Abdullah's report today on SIPA Central Asia website, approximately within 1 hour after this webinar finished. I will put the link in the chat also, so you can look. In the meantime, our website, which we try to promote in every convenience. Thank you for your attention, and it's good that we are keeping in time, and we maybe have more time at the end if time is over for the Q&A session. Now I want to give floor to our colleagues from OECD. Faraz Al-Husami, yes, I hear. I think you hear. Yes, and
yes,
it's yours, and it's your time to present your presentation about investment, green investment in Uzbekistan.
thank you very much. So my colleague Pauline will share my presentation so that I can have my notes in front of me. Good afternoon to all of you, and of course, let me first warmly thank the University of Central Asia and my colleague Pelin Atamer for inviting me to this important discussion, as was mentioned earlier on. So I'm Faris Al-Husami, and I'm heading the OECD's work on foreign direct investment qualities and impact. Basically, what we do is to equip governments with indicators, data, policy standards, and analysis to understand how foreign investment affects the economy. So we guide policymakers in improving their business climates and enhancing the impact of FDI for foreign direct investment in areas like climate, productivity, digitalization, job quality, skills, and gender equality. And so in the next slide, I just want to show you briefly what is the context for this work I'm presenting. And I'm happy to see here that we have our counterparts from Uzbekistan, Mr. Tengiz Azanov, dear now almost friend with whom we have been cooperating on this project. So we have conducted extensive work with Uzbekistan as part of a project named Roadmap for Sustainable Investment Policy Reforms. And this roadmap is a sort of unique multi-stakeholder cooperation between the government of Uzbekistan, the European Union, the Asian Development Bank, and the OECD. And it really examines every single aspect of the investment policy framework in Uzbekistan, focusing on all of these areas you see on this slide. Now, of course, one important area we cover in this report is channeling investment to promote environmental goals and also looking, as my colleague Pelin mentioned, at environmental technologies and green hydrogen. And this part will be presented by her later on. So I will focus in the next 10, 12 minutes on the key findings from this chapter we have on FDI and green or environmental goals in Uzbekistan. And let me start with, in the next slide, with some FDI trends. We have seen very interesting numbers before the presentation before. I may have missed the exact source of the data. In our case, we rely very much on FDI markets database, commercial database, to examine greenfield FDI in different sectors, including in renewables. And as you see on this slide, foreign investment in renewables has increased very rapidly in recent years. And in fact, greenfield FDI in renewables now exceeds investment in fossil fuels, both in Uzbekistan and also more globally in Central Asia. And this is a remarkable shift, given, at least for the case of Uzbekistan, the strong reliance on hydrocarbon in the past. So if you look carefully here, you see that between 2019 and 2023, greenfield investment in renewable energy projects, mainly solar and wind, reached about nearly 12 billion USD dollar. So that's more than 3 times the amount that went into fossil fuels. This amount in greenfield investment in renewables, it represents almost half of all greenfield investment in Uzbekistan over this period, a share that is also higher than in most peer countries, including in Central Asia. And of course, it's a challenge to know how this progress has been made possible. But from our analysis, we of course pay strong attention to an improved business climate in Uzbekistan, including more competitive tenders and public-private partnerships that have helped lower country risk for foreign investors, while also reducing the cost of electricity for consumers. This is just to cite a few of the aspects we think that have contributed to this strong performance. Now, if we turn to the next slide, we still see that there is room for further improvement. And actually, we see that energy-intensive sectors or industries, they still remain very important destination for foreign investment in Uzbekistan. So on the left, for instance, the chart shows that sectors like chemicals, metals, building materials, they have attracted nearly 20% of FDI inflows in fixed assets. And so these sectors, adding also to them agriculture and the water stress it creates, they are some of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases, both because of their direct production processes and because they consume large amount of electricity. So while Uzbekistan has made great strides in renewable energy, in attracting FDI in renewable energy, managing investment into carbon-intensive industries remain a key challenge for the broader low carbon transition. And I'm sure that this is a challenge that is shared not only by Central Asian countries, but by actually all countries in the world. And on the next 3 slides, I want to show you numbers that are specific to not FDI in renewables, but the role of foreign firms in influencing environmental practices across all sectors of the economy, because this is more the key challenge, as I have just highlighted before. And overall, the performance of foreign firms in environmental practices, it can be somehow mixed. Although overall, it tends to be rather positive because foreign firms, they may have better access to some technologies, they have maybe more pressures to follow international standards, etc. Now, of course, if FDI or foreign firms are concentrated in carbon intensive sectors, then this, of course, it needs to be taken into consideration. And here we see that in Uzbekistan, few firms, whether foreign or Uzbek firm or domestic firms, as we call them, integrate environmental and climate issues into their strategy and human resource allocation. And if you look at the figure on the right more specifically, we see that foreign firms are more likely to appoint a manager responsible for climate issues in Uzbekistan. But overall, few firms, again, they employ such manager when we compare to the other countries. And also here you have the Central Asian aggregate shown in the figure. So yeah, very few firms overall, they mention issues related to climate in their strategic objectives or have a manager responsible for that. In the next slide, we look at energy efficiency measures. And here the picture is more balanced. So on the figure on the left, we see that Uzbek firms are actually twice as likely as foreign firms to set targets for energy consumption. And this is even higher than also in the rest of Central Asia that you see on the right of the left figure. At the same time, most firms in Uzbekistan, and here both Uzbek and foreign firms, they report monitoring their energy consumption, and this is what the figure on the right shows. And again, these shares in Uzbekistan, they are slightly higher than in the region, although it's very high in general in many different countries. And this is a good news because it suggests that efficiency is becoming really a shared priority across the business community in Central Asia, in Uzbekistan, both by foreign and domestic firms. Now, how can we explain the better performance of Uzbek firms in terms of targeting or setting targets for energy consumption? So it could be for different reasons. We could imagine that maybe, and it's maybe somehow related to the presentation before, that the government made in Uzbekistan a lot of measure for energy efficiency in the industrial sector, targeting companies, including mandatory energy audits for energy intensive industries and mandatory energy management systems for companies with public funding. So it could be that maybe SOEs, they have been more controlled by the government in terms of measure for energy efficiency, and the result of this is that they have they set more targets for energy consumption in Uzbekistan than foreign firms themselves. And finally, in the third slide about the green business practices, we show that foreign firms are much more likely than Uzbek firms to use renewable energy in their operation. So nearly double the share of Uzbek firms. It's a bit hard to see in the figure, but this is what the numbers are. And they also, the foreign firms in Uzbekistan, perform better in waste management practices, which is also a very encouraging sign of how international investment can bring higher standards, at least in some areas of the environmental sustainability. So after we have set the scene in terms of what is the situation in Uzbekistan and maybe also in other countries, we want to look at what the policy side can do to first Uzbekistan continue attracting FDI in renewables, and maybe even more important, how to improve foreign firms, environmental practices across all sectors, including energy intensive sectors. And in the next slide, we mapped the institutional landscape for green investment in Uzbekistan. And this figure for Uzbekistan is actually also very similar to other countries we have done. So you see that it's very complex. There are like many institutions involved, but that's in a way normal. If we want to look at investment and green policies, there is some sort of complexity to be generated, and complexity does not mean something negative as long as we manage very well coordination across the different agencies. And in recent years, we see that Uzbekistan has created several high-level councils, the Green Economy Transition Council, the Climate Change Council, chaired by the president himself. And these bodies, they are responsible for coordinating the implementation of these different strategies and advancing climate commitment. At the same time, we observe that ministries such as energy, ecology, and investment play also major roles in this endeavor. And we also observe that sometimes there is an overlapping set of actors that maybe reflect the Uzbek ambition to move ahead with this, but it also can make coordination more difficult. And without stronger mechanism for policy alignment, there is a risk of duplication or gaps in implementation, and I will get back to this when I will provide some of the recommendations. Now, in the next slide, we want to say that Uzbekistan does, however, have very strong strategic and legal frameworks. I mentioned some strategies before, but there are also a lot of legal reforms that have been done, and some were mentioned in the presentation before. We can mention before the Green Economy Transition Strategy that sets very ambitious objective, raising the share of renewables of installed capacity to 40% by 23, etc., etc. And this strategy is supported by a range of sectoral policies from electricity supply security, waste management, reforms in transport. And these different policies and strategies are really gradually shaping the overall enabling environment for green investment in Uzbekistan. The challenge, of course, and this is not specific to Uzbekistan, is not so much about having all of these strategies, but about implementing them. We see that, for instance, climate adaptation aspect remain maybe a bit more underdeveloped in the strategies, and green objectives are not yet fully mainstream into investment promotion policies, and I will get back to this later on. So exactly, I will turn now to the recommendation in the next two slides. So on the first slide of recommendations, we look at how Uzbekistan can continue attracting investment in the renewable energy sector. And first, we observe that it's important to phase renewable energy investments carefully. Solar and wind projects, they need sufficient time for design, for grid updates, for competitive tenders, which can help reduce electricity cost. And sometimes we observe that in Uzbekistan and probably in other countries, the ambition to go very fast might not be always something that can pay off. So taking the time for this huge project, this PPP project, to know if they are value for money, etc., have the right mechanism, it's worthwhile taking the time to assessing this carefully. Strengthening the flexibility of the power system is also key. This means expanding storage capacity, improving demand side management, investing in regional trade corridors, and advancing electricity market reforms to support these grid upgrades. Third point, and I mentioned it before, the public-private partnership management can be improved, and this can include better assessment of fiscal risks, we have seen that there might be some risk in the way Uzbekistan allows for foreign investment in PPPs. And a better assessment of fiscal risk is very important, stronger strategic planning of project, and ensuring that liabilities are disclosed also transparently. Fourth, competition in the power sector should be further encouraged by, for instance, developing wholesale and retail electricity market and considering further partial privatization of some state-owned assets. Fossil fuel subsidies and pricing also could deserve some reforms. Gradually liberalizing prices would strengthen SOEs, modernize infrastructure, and make renewable projects more attractive to private, foreign, and domestic investors. Of course, at the same time, social support should be expanded to protect vulnerable households during this process. And last but not least, refocusing tax incentives, shifting away from generous subsidies for fossil fuels towards what we call expenditure-based incentive for renewables. This would send a very strong signal to investors. What do I mean by expenditure-based incentive for renewables? This basically means that the incentives that an investor gets granted depends on the amount of expenditure they do in a specific activity. For instance, if you spend money on improving some green technologies in your company, then the government will take part of this cost or will deduce part of this cost from the taxes that the company would need to pay. And this is very different from what we call income-based incentives that are, for instance, tax holidays in any sector, and just because the company is in this sector and is operating in this sector, it will receive incentives. So it's not tied to performance objectives. So these are the recommendations we had on investment in renewables. Now, in the next slide, I have recommendation on how to improve the environmental sustainability of investment project. And here Uzbekistan could do more to promote and facilitate green investment in a more systematic way. So this means streamlining the institutional setup for investment promotion and developing a national investment promotion strategy that explicitly integrates climate and environmental goals. In Uzbekistan, you have, of course, Ministry of Investment, Industry and Trade, but you have Ministry of Ecology. Sometimes these two different ministries, they have their own investment promotion activities. There is maybe no sometimes like a more unified vision on how to go about that. So nailing down this in a transparent national investment promotion strategy that all actors in Uzbekistan follow and agree upon with specific KPIs could help further achieve some of the objectives. Another key area are, of course, environmental impact assessment. This could be enforced more effectively with more genuine public consultation, so that projects are not only approved on paper, but really also implemented responsibly in practice. And of course, it's always easier to say than to do, but still very important to mention. Responsible business conduct is another powerful lever in the context of green business practices. The government, by setting very clear expectation and supporting companies in applying due diligence, Uzbekistan can ensure that foreign and domestic firms alike minimize the adverse impact on the environment, climate, and biodiversity. And this responsible business conduct aspect and due diligence is very important when we talk about, for instance, exports to the EU market. So any improvement in the due diligence of companies related to environmental standards will also improve their competitiveness in being exporters to the EU and also other markets. And finally, Uzbekistan could continue its very ambitious journey in strengthening the broader enabling condition for green investment. So this ranges from developing skills that are in demand by green investors. The world is changing extremely rapidly. Foreign investors are always at the top in terms of what skills they need, and green digital skills are in high demand, and government needs to really quickly adapt to offer these skills to these investors. Protecting intellectual property right would be also important to boost low carbon innovations, not only attracting FDI in renewables, but also to boost low carbon innovation. And my colleague will probably come back to that later. And so all of this measure can help ensure that investment not only support growth, but also contribute to a more sustainable and competitive economy in the long run in Uzbekistan. So these are the insights that I wanted to share with you, and happy to discuss further. And I will stop my presentation here. Now I have shown to you a number of indicators and data that I want to also show you as part of what we call our FDI qualities visualization platform. This platform is accessible to everyone, to all of you. I will post the link in the chat. And these platforms allows any government to examine the impact, or to look at the impact of FDI, foreign direct investment, in a set of different sustainability areas. So I don't know if you see my screen, if you can tell me, Pelin.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Can see screen.
Great. So let me take you through this. So this FDI qualities indicator we have developed, they cover different areas. So it's productivity innovation, gender equality, climate, of course, digital economy, and job creation and skills. I will just show you now examples related to the green aspect. But this is the overall page, and this kind of gives you already some indicators that are like at the very high level. You can choose here any aggregate, but you can also choose any country in the world and examine the contribution of FDI to different sustainability criteria. Of course, for some countries, there is more data than others, but overall, you will probably still find something relevant for your own country. And here we have a tab by country that I think is most interesting. And let me, for instance, take the example, I don't know, of Kyrgyzstan here. So you can choose Kyrgyzstan, for instance, and it will show you for Kyrgyzstan all of the indicators relating to FDI impact in different areas that I mentioned. So here, for instance, on productivity and innovation, we can look at the performance of foreign firms in Kyrgyzstan compared to domestic ones. And then if you scroll down, we also have indicators related to job quality and skills development. And if you scroll further down, you look at gender equality. So the role of foreign firms in improving gender equality objectives in Kyrgyzstan. And then, of course, the low carbon transition. And here there are like some data that I have shown you before in my presentation. And very important for today's discussion, the digital transformation, also indicators. So you can look at this by country, but you can also look at this by FDI impact area. So if you go here to FDI impact area, and you can go to low carbon transition, and then, for instance, look at select renewables and green technology, and then you can examine greenfield FDI in renewables and in green technologies. For instance, here we see a figure that is by region, OECD and OECD, and different regions. So we don't have Central Asia, we have Europe and Central Asia. But we could maybe add Central Asia in the future. That shouldn't be that difficult. And then you also have the top 20 or 50 countries, I forgot now, in terms of FDI in renewables, also like being listed here. If you don't see your country here, you can go on the country tab and get this data. But then we also have information on the number of jobs created by foreign firms in the renewable sector. That's very important when we talk about the just transition. We also have some indicators here that are a bit outdated, but are very interesting on the CO2 emissions of foreign firms versus domestic firms in a number of countries. And also what I have shown in my presentation before, indicators on the energy efficiency of foreign firms versus domestic firms in a number of countries. So I will share this link in the chat, and I invite you all to go and play with this data. And please feel free to reach out to Pauline or myself if you have any questions or want any further information on that. So I will stop here and I guess hand over to Pauline directly to present the green hydrogen part of the work on Uzbekistan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fares, for sharing all those extremely interesting and rich insights from the exercise led in Uzbekistan. And I know that our partners here are busily actually working to implement a high number of our recommendations, which is a testimony to the engagement and to the impact that the OECD and Uzbekistan collaboration, that the OECD can have in the region. So as far as said, my presentation, which I will now share, and hopefully it will be the correct screen. Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, you can see it, right?
Not yet.
No.
Now we can see.
So now we can see. Okay.
Yes.
I did it just before, and
Yes,
always
of
takes a
course.
So my presentation will now focus on a specific section of the green investments chapter, which Fares just presented, which focuses specifically on the attraction of foreign direct investment in low carbon technologies in Uzbekistan, with a specific focus on hydrogen, and noting that these insights are also useful for other countries of the region, much of which are interested in the development of renewable hydrogen, albeit at different levels of interest or of progress. So first of all, why renewable hydrogen, and why is this technology gaining so much interest? The reason is that renewable hydrogen has a number of applications across the energy, transport, and industry that are very specific and that cannot easily be made by other types of technology. So what we mean by hydrogen here, green hydrogen or renewable hydrogen, is hydrogen that is produced from water electrolysis powered by renewable electricity. There is another type of hydrogen, or hydrogen resulting from a different production pathway that is deemed clean, but that is produced through fossil fuels, but with carbon capture technology associated. And here in this study and in the work that we have been doing under SIPA, we have focused on the cleanest form of clean hydrogen, which is renewable hydrogen generated from the renewable electricity, which only releases water as a byproduct, and thus is totally carbon neutral. So why hydrogen again? Because for decarbonizing energy-related and other processes involved in industry operations, electrification, although it will play a key role, will not be enough to decarbonize those sectors, simply because electrification is not technically feasible or because it is too costly. And it is particularly the case in emission-intensive industries, such as steel, cement, chemicals, and the mineral sector. And as Fares' presentation showed, these sectors attract a lot of FDI currently in Uzbekistan and are major recipients for FDI. And Uzbekistan, much like other countries in the region, is seeking to develop its industrial exportations as part of its economic growth model, looking to expand its industrial production. And this expansion will carry additional energy needs. And if those energy needs are not met with the proper clean technologies, then greenhouse gas emissions will continue to rise. In this context, so clean hydrogen is a cross-cutting solution for specifically hard to abate greenhouse gas emissions, those that cannot be addressed by more conventional technologies such as electrification. One is chemical processes, where hydrogen is used as a reducing agent or a feedstock, and the other one is for high temperature processes, so fossil fuel combustion for high temperature industrial processes. And these are really energy related greenhouse gas emissions, as opposed to the chemical processes that I was referring to earlier. Another application that is really interesting for Central Asia is the production of hydrogen and then its utilization in hydrogen fuel cell vehicles for the mining sector. As net zero vehicles in the mining sector mining trucks is a key lever to decarbonize mining activities, which in Asia are prevalent and expected to grow. Though this technology is very innovative, like other hydrogen technologies. The international energy investment projects that clean hydrogen global production will reach 500 million tons in 2050. It's a very high growth that is projected as countries are looking at ways to accelerate the scale up of hydrogen production to enable it to reduce its production costs, as currently renewable hydrogen remains much more costly to produce, of course, than fossil fuel-based hydrogen. And so attracting more investments globally and in countries is critical to enable the emergence of a renewable hydrogen sector. In this slide, I wanted to show simply industry contributions to greenhouse gas emissions across countries of Central Asia. So they span from a low 4% in Turkmenistan up to 35% in Tajikistan. And in Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan, those industrial emissions would vary between 11% and 18%. These figures come from the EU EDGAR database. They might present some discrepancies with other data sources, as reliable data is somehow scarce, and so there can be some uncertainties, but these figures still provide a good picture. As I was just mentioning, industrial export-led development pathways mean that if nothing is done to accelerate investments in clean energy for the purpose of decarbonizing industries, then there is a risk that greenhouse gas emissions from the industrial sector will rise in the region. In this slide, I wanted to show some trends related to the industrial emissions of Uzbekistan, which since 2015 have been growing a little bit above 4% per year. And on this slide, you can also see the decomposition of the two types of origination of greenhouse gas emissions from the industrial sector. One being the emissions from the process production of hard to abate industries, which now represent 40% in Uzbekistan and have been growing at a faster pace than the other source of greenhouse gas emission, which is from the combustion, fossil fuel combustion for industrial manufacturing. Now, I would like to spend a brief, small amount of time on the recent hydrogen developments in Central Asia, and particularly in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan was able to actually take the first green hydrogen or renewable hydrogen project in Central Asia to reach its final investment decision. So this was a first for Central Asia, and it looks like a very promising project. It's a joint venture between the chemical SOE Uzkium Sanoat and Saudi Arabia's Aqua Power. So joint venture between a national between an SOE and a foreign investor from Saudi Arabia, and it benefits from the financing from EBRD as well. And this setup for the region certainly is the type of setup that can really take this type of projects forward. And what is quite unique about this project as well in Central Asia is that Aqua Power signed a power purchasing agreement with the national grid to produce renewable energy and a hydrogen to produce renewable energy, as well as a hydrogen purchasing agreement with UKS, with the SOE, to produce green hydrogen for green ammonia production. And this is one of the key features of one of the strengths of Uzbekistan for being able to attract this investment, was this opportunity for domestic application, domestic substitution within a sector where there was already a use of hydrogen in the production, or of a substitutable for green hydrogen. Now, Uzbekistan does not have yet a national strategy at this stage. There was a presidential decree in 2021 that set some objectives to advance renewable hydrogen in the country, yet there are no national strategy yet. And on the right hand side of my slide, you can see some of the recent developments across Central Asia concerning the development of renewable hydrogen, including in Kazakhstan, a large project, the Svevin project, which is being developed. Kazakhstan also adopted a national hydrogen strategy. Mongolia has a pilot project, a Sunstep project in its south, in its desert of South Gobi, that is developing, and the national hydrogen strategy under development, which SIPA supported. Tajikistan is drafting a roadmap for green hydrogen development, whereas Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan are exploring potential for developing this technology. And so you see that there is interest and progress across Central Asia, opportunities for regional cooperation and for peer-to-peer learning. And so some of those recommendations that I would like to present from the report Fares presented can be of use to other countries looking to develop this technology. So the first key recommendation is really to develop a strategic vision and to send a clear signals and incentives for investors to invest in this sector. And this can mean to consider to have a formal commitment to decarbonize hard-to-abate industries with a clear role for green hydrogen in NDC and long-term strategic plans. So Uzbekistan has been developing a long-term strategy. I don't think it has been submitted or made public yet, but this presents an opportunity to clearly carve out and delineate a role for green hydrogen to decarbonize the national economy. The development of a national hydrogen strategy is also a key tool that countries have used to accelerate or to provide a vision as to how to develop green hydrogen in those countries, especially for first moving countries with targets regarding domestic use as well as export of green hydrogen. The second pillar is to create a business case for green hydrogen and to support early investors, because it is extremely, it is an innovative sector and an innovative technology. It is also very risky. And as I said, there is a need to support these early projects and to decrease their costs to incentivize investment. And so to that effect, our report recommends to establish targeted expenditure-based investment incentives, to use de-risking approaches, such as, for example, SOE purchasing agreement, the type of agreement that I mentioned for the UKS Aqua project, but also public procurement, export credit guarantees are examples of de-risking approaches that can be used to that effect. To envisage the usage of carbon pricing instruments, Uzbekistan has announced that it would launch a carbon market at the beginning of 2026, if I'm correct. And so this is a positive development for encouraging investments in low carbon technologies, along with other low carbon solutions for decarbonizing infrastructures. Continuing to strategically engage with IFIs and bilateral cooperation platforms to mobilize financing, concessional financing for these projects to develop, to include renewable hydrogen in the green investment promotion efforts that were recommended precedently by my colleague Fares in his presentation, and to align with international standards and certification requirements. And one area where Central Asia countries could cooperate would be to define regional standards for developing and exporting and trading renewable hydrogen. And the last pillar revolves around the facilitation of investment in green hydrogen and removal of barriers to investment, including in the field of permitting and licensing processes, such as planning and zoning, transport, water access, storage, handling and safety considerations. Association with industrial hubs could be a way to look at this. Acceleration zones for renewable energy development project and with a specific focus associated on clean renewable hydrogen. These approaches would help to accelerate investments. And finally, to consider leveraging special economic zones and industrial clusters and enhance agglomeration benefits and co-location of key infrastructure. This can be particularly critical as renewable hydrogen renewable hydrogen development plans in Uzbekistan, as in elsewhere, but critically in Uzbekistan, should also consider some of the risks concerning water scarcity. So I've tried to keep it brief. There's a lot more to it in the report, but I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Pelin. For us also, we have extremely interesting presentation. But before we start Q&A session, I suggest that all participants will switch on the cameras so we can make a big group photo. Yes, thank you. So, not all people still. Okay. Okay, thank you. My colleague Agirim will make group photo now, and we move further in a minute.
Colleagues, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Wait, one more time.
One more time.
Yeah, second page. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Thank you. So we have 3 extremely interesting presentations, and I want to start from Ablai because we have already 2 questions in the chat from Manisha, and then Bahati second also have a question here. So please start. Yes, please start.
Okay, thank you, Kanat. Thank you for the questions. It was also hand raised later on.
It's Bahati.
Yeah, so I already...
You start from Manisha.
Okay, yeah, I'll start from Manisha. So Manisha, thank you for your question. So your question, can you please tell us why Tajikistan has 62% of coal-fired power plants? So let me correct just kindly your question. So in my presentation, I didn't provide production of energy using the coal, right? So in my presentation, I indicated investment trends, especially how much investment actually went to coal-fired power plants in Tajikistan. So this is a correction to your, this is the answer actually and the correction of your question. And your second question, it is not more than 90% of hydropower plants. You are absolutely right. So basically, Kyrgyzstan and let's say Tajikistan produces almost 90% of all the energy using the hydro, which is more kind of low carbon energy infrastructure. So I think this
yeah,
is...
but also mention database.
Yeah. So also about data, we found like that this is data limited for 2008 to 2023, 16 years. So this is a aggregate data. So if you would like to, if you are interested, so if it is necessary to go to yearly basis to see the breakdown of investments. So this is more kind of aggregated over the 16 years. That's why the number of the investment of 62% of all investments in coal-fired power plants, that's given by that.
And also I want to mention that database which was created by Apply and his co-authors is published on SIPA Central Asia website earlier this year, so it's available and you could it's in Excel format, you can download it and check information there. And also, as I said, today we will publish the report itself for your convenience and interest. And next, a question to Bakht.
Yes, so
I think she can.
Okay.
She's raised hand, so she can.
Yeah, I can also reply.
Bakht, can you? Yes. Maybe you want to.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for running this workshop, and I'm happy to see OECD team and UCA team and as organizers this workshop. And it's very interesting information, especially about indicators. I think it is very useful information for Central Asia country and for Kazakhstan. We have just finished discussion carbon legislation in Kazakhstan, and Pelin also was involved in this discussion. And my question, according, Abla, I think for your presentation, and my question, according calculation renewables in Kazakhstan, because it's the different OECD team also know about different approaches for calculation. And my question was according counting not only sun and wind, but also water resources in Kazakhstan. And my question, first question to Ablai about calculation. Do you consider all renewables in Kazakhstan, including water, or only official data on sunny and wind? This is first question to Ablai. And second question to Forrest. Mr. Forrest, thank you very much for your presentation about carbon intensity. And my question, do you consider CBAM? You know that since next year, Kazakhstan should pay carbon border adjustment tax in export. And for us, it's a very big question how we can calculate carbon intensity, including CBAM. And last question to Pelin. Pelin, thank you very much for your presentation about hydrogen potential in Uzbekistan. And my question, according carbon price in Uzbekistan, can you present your vision how Uzbekistan partners can consider potential or calculation carbon potential in Uzbekistan? Thank you very much, and I'm waiting your reply for this question.
Okay, should I start?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sekina, for your question. Yes, sure. Like I cannot provide the exact let's say names of projects as of now for Kazakhstan, but we also considered solar, wind, and hydro energy projects for all 6 countries in the entire region. So yeah, we included most like the data available from 2008 to 2013 in this time span. We included all the projects related to hydro as well. But again, what I also mentioned before, for hydro is mostly like big, small scale and large scale hydropower plants are mostly like applied for Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, giving this mountainous region. And this is more kind of applied for these two countries. But for Kazakhstan, yes, we also included several projects. So again, as Kanat mentioned before, our data sets already on the website. So the more information can be seen there. And if it's interesting,
and from report?
Yeah, from report also we will indicate the key projects there.
Now I want to transfer floor to Faris, because the second question of Professor Ezekin was to him.
Yes, thank you, Kanat. Actually, we exchanged offline with Faris, and I will be taking that question. I think the two questions, Bahid, that you are asking are somehow linked, and we have worked in Kazakhstan. Actually, we're involved in that work together with Gastrade to provide some recommendations in Kazakhstan to respond to the development of this carbon border adjustment mechanism from the EU, which consists in a carbon tax at the border to ensure that importers of industrial products in a high number of industries are applied the same carbon pricing as EU producers, basically. And this is the concept, let's say, or the main goal underpinning this instrument. And we know that CBAM, although its impact right now is relatively limited in Uzbekistan, and the impact expected is a bit larger in Kazakhstan, though it concerns very specific sectors. So nationally, it's not large, but in specific sectors, it does represent higher costs for exportation, namely in steel, in aluminium, and this type of energy intensive products. So this is a question. So I would say there are two answers to your question on what to do about CBAM. I would say first of all that CBAM can be seen as an opportunity or as an additional incentive, though far from being the only one, for industrials to actually engage in decarbonization efforts. And in this perspective, I would say that as a matter of national framework conditions, all the recommendations that are contained that Fares presented are actually somewhat relevant to the decarbonization of industrial activities. And then more specifically, the recommendations that I made on hydrogen also apply, because those recommendations are actually trying to incentivize investment into innovative technologies. So there is that part that is specific on a very innovative and relatively costly technologies, but similar incentives will exist for more conventional technologies to incentivize energy efficiency, which Uzbekistan has already a number of progress made across its industrial sectors, on electrification, but for which the renewable energy needs to exist, and again for these more innovative technologies. So that's a first step. Then I would like to highlight that to prepare exporters, one side which right now I would not get too much into is to prepare exporters for requirements of this legislation. And that is very technical in terms of measuring their carbon emissions, and so this relates to to have a good carbon data management systems in place, strong monitoring, reporting, and verification systems for reporting this and measuring the carbon footprint of products, etc., etc. And then there are more instruments to stimulate investment into reducing carbon footprint of products. including carbon pricing instruments. And this relates to also your question, Bahit, about what Uzbekistan could do. I will finish because my answer is already being too long. But we have made some recommendations to Kazakhstan for strengthening its emissions trading system. Kazakhstan is the first country that has an emission trading system in Central Asia, which has a good architecture, yet has not been working so far because of parameters that were not conducive to establishing a real carbon price floor. So we've made recommendations to this. And I will finish on the note that I think that in its effort to develop a carbon market, Uzbekistan should really talk to Kazakhstan about the experience. I think this is a great peer-to-peer learning opportunity because Kazakhstan really has, I think, a lot to say on this topic to Uzbek colleagues. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your full question, full reply, and I kindly recommend your team, SIPA project, to continue your activity in development, integration of green indicator to statistic system. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question from Nargis. Yes? Yes, please, Nargis Shantaeva. We are not hearing you. Sorry. No sound.
Maybe.
Now it's okay. Some noise we can hear.
It's not working. It's not really a question, it's a comment I wanted to make because of the discussion on CBAM. I'm not directly working with the OECD team, but the team with Pelin, but I wanted to make a comment because I recently published a paper about it and I found that some specific sectors in Kazakhstan, so the paper was about CBAM impacts in Kazakhstan, and some sectors will benefit from paying the tax to EU because their actual CO2 emission intensity are much higher. So if they were to actually pay the proper amount, it would have been a lot higher. And if anyone is interested, I can also share the paper. It was recently published on the internet and it's relevant to Kazakhstan, which is why maybe Bahit would be interested or someone else in the audience. So it's not a question, but yeah.
Please upload a link to your paper in the chat and we'll also try to keep it in our library. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yes. I have Nazgul. I think it's Nazgul. Please apply. In the beginning mentioned the substantial potential for solar energy, but harsh winters reduce. What might it mean for countries? Okay.
Yes, so thank you, Nazgul, for the question. Actually, this is data given from the reports, and basically harsh winters meaning that to the more northern regions of, for example, Kazakhstan and Mongolia, because again, there is a high potential for both countries, including the Turkmenistan, to develop solar energy. But this is, I guess, more technical question again, as our study mostly used identification of investment patterns. Though this is more let's say, technical side, right? So of course, during the harsh winter, solar energy can decrease up to 30%, meaning that other sources of energy, such as wind, in terms of Kazakhstan, where is wind presented, right, in the northern to central and the southeast part, so can be utilized. And of course, this may challenge development of low carbon infrastructure development in the region, but so let's say this is our reality.
So it's for Kazakhstan, basically.
Yes, for Kazakhstan. Yeah.
Yeah, closer to south, closer to equator, actually. Yes. We have high efficiency of solar energy and productivity increase, and it's easier. It's
because of weather
conditions, it's dependent.
Climate.
It's a let's say degree of how our planet moves around the sun. Yeah, so we cannot change this, but we can adopt this. Thank you, Nargis, for your. No, it's the next. Thank you, Nazgul, for question. Thank you, Nargis, for uploading link to your publication. And I want to make maybe some wrap up and some conclusive, let's say, remarks about presentation and discussion. We have 3 excellent presentation. Thanks, Ablai. It's the end of very long as a process. And I'm happy that we finally, it's a final presentation and we'll publish it today. And I hope we will find some opportunity to continue this work, maybe combine this with the work or which we did previously in our transport decarbonization paper. Also uploaded, that it was done by Martina Junusova, and we also uploaded to our SIPA Central Asia website. You could find today later Ablai's work on the sipacentralasia.org. Thank you, Faris and Belin. It's extremely was interesting that Faris, the most interesting part you keep at the end. This database we found, we discussed it internally when you presented that it's very useful instrument, and it's definitely will bring attention of the energy expert across the region to this. OECD prepared extremely big job for collecting all this information, making it available for wider public. And we quite also happy that the progress in Uzbekistan in the in energy decarbonization, in foreign direct investment, and also promoting more, let's say, greener behavior of the government, of the business, of investment in Uzbekistan changed over time, moved to a more, let's say, greener and less intensive carbon contamination of our natural resources. Belin's presentation present us very extremely interesting topic. We want to see hydrogen projects somewhere in the region. It's time to start. It's we cannot say it's we heard a lot of talks about hydrogen, but we want to see real projects. I think it's time to maybe establish, and we naturally it may be occurred to in the bigger countries like Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan, where energy consumption is huge and the economy of scale definitely will make investment in such projects more attractive. We also want to say that we with apply now with our research team, Aaron, we thinking Aaron actually trying to initiate such maybe more projects when we potentially move our Narin campus first, but then also Horok campus in the future to a, let's say, green campus where we could combine solar energy, water, hydro energy, and also hydrogen, also as a potential to move and make it independent from the external supply of electricity and heat, and make our campuses first campuses which potentially might be, let's say, fully green from energy consumption point of view. It's a plans. We will continue work in the future, and we still have a lot to do until the end of SIPA project. And also we have a also plan beyond the SIPA program. When it will finish, we will continue our work in the future, and we collect all contacts of our colleagues who was today with us, and we wish all the good. And thanks to a CD colleague again, and to Ablai. Thanks again, who did a lot of preparation and work, and it's extremely big job was done. Actually, what you see, it's a small part, and we actually working usually 2-3 months before this webinar realized. Thanks to translator who translate today's presentations and discussions topics, and I hope we will be able to see you once again before the year finished. with our 6 SIPA webinars, and you definitely will receive our invitations one more time this year. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, colleagues. Goodbye. Thank you so much to the University of Central Asia. Goodbye,
Yes.
everyone.
Colleagues, goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And welcome
Thank
to
you very
Kazakhstan.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.